Hi everyone, this is Mila. Thanks for joining me today. I am going to be showing you how to make a mini album right from scratch, right from raw chipboard, and I'll try to show you a step-by-step tutorial, and hopefully that will help answer any questions that anybody has. And of course, if you ever do have any questions, feel free to email me, and my email address is milamemories@yahoo.com. The first thing I do when I make a mini album is I, of course, decide on the paper collection that I'm using. And then I decide whether I want to do a shaped mini album or just a square mini album, and of course the size, etc. And I'll do a few different tutorials on like a shaped mini album. I'll try to do a different tutorial on that one, because that one, shapes are a little bit more, I think they're a little more difficult than just a square or circle mini album. So today we'll be focusing on a square 6x6 mini album, and the paper collection that I'm using is a Halloween collection, and I've already pre-cut all of my papers and my chipboard, and the next thing I do after I've picked out my designer paper, I go to all of my supplies, my stash, and I try to pick out anything that will coordinate with my paper collection that I've chosen. So in this case, I always have, I bought these little, let me see if it fits in here. I bought these little buckets, or tins, I'm not sure what you call them exactly, but I bought them from Target. Is that fitting in the frame? And I have, I think, like 3 or 4 of these, and I am always working on multiple projects at one time, so I do have a bunch of them. But I try to go around my stash and wherever I have, you know, Halloween decorations or anything that I think I would want to use, and I just throw them in this bucket. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to use that, but it means that it does coordinate with the paper collection that I'm using, and there's a good possibility that I will use it because I do want to use what I buy. So I always keep everything in this bucket, and there may be something that is not in this bucket that I do want to use, or that I think of, oh wow, I have this, and so I'll go back to my stash and get that and try to make it work. So everything pretty much is in this bucket that I'll need, and I do this to save myself time, because if I keep going back and forth, you know, everything is in separate places, and from cardstock to stickers to different 3D embellishments to bling. So I find when it's all in this one bucket, it really helps me be more productive. So the next thing, after I have went through my stash and collected anything that I feel coordinates with this paper collection, or anything that I might want to use with for this mini album, let's say lace, ribbon, trim, any sort of stamps that I would want to use. Like I even had stamps in the bucket, you know, any kind of stamps that I would want to use. I just throw them all in the bucket, anything that coordinates with this, including stamps. So the next thing I do is I put the paper, or adhere the paper onto the chipboard. Now, in most cases, you'll notice I never punch holes in my paper or chipboard before I adhere them together. Now, in this case, I just got my cinch today, and I was really, really anxious to use it, so I wanted to try it out before I had adhered the paper together. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult just because I have to make sure I line up the holes perfectly, but we can definitely make it work. So normally, again, I do not punch holes before I adhere my paper to my chipboard. I usually adhere my paper and then punch any holes that I'm going to make. And I do want to punch the holes ahead of time before I start embellishing my mini album because I need to know where the holes are going to be, so I don't put any embellishments on here or where the holes would be, you know, so that it would cover it up, etc. So we're going to go ahead and just start adhering my paper. And what I use to adhere paper, I use different things. Sometimes I'll use this Tombow Mono multi-liquid glue. This stuff lasts a while and it holds, it is so super sticky. It dries so fast. So sometimes I'll use this, and other times I'll go ahead and just use my ATG gun. Just depends. On shaped mini albums, it's really hard to use an ATG gun, so I definitely would use the Tombow Mono for a shaped mini album. And what I mean when I talk about shaped mini albums is something like this, and I'll give you guys a sneak peek of what's coming up in my Etsy store next. But this is one shape, a mini album that I'm working on that's shaped, and this will be up in my Etsy store soon, probably within the next few days. And so it's a shape, if you see, compared to, like, this is a 6x6 square shape, and this is just a shaped mini album. So it's not a perfect square or perfect circle, and it's a little more difficult to work with. But if you have any sort of die cutting machine like a Big Shot or a Cricut or what are some other ones? I know the new Cameo is coming out, so just any kind of die cutter, doesn't really matter. It will help you make shaped mini albums a lot easier. So that's just a sneak peek of what's coming up in my Etsy store. So alright, let's go ahead and start adhering the paper. And at this point, I'm not really concerned about which paper is going to be my cover or my my back, because I'm just adhering them. I'm not putting them together for good. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere the paper collection to the chipboard with the Tombow Mono glue. So I'm just going to set them aside, and I'm going to do them one by one. I just find it easier that way. And I have 6 chipboard pieces, and I have 12 designer series papers. And the reason for that is because I'm going to put the designer paper on both sides of the chipboard. So, and I like to use chipboard. I just find it more durable, it's sturdier. I think it'll last a lot longer. It's a lot tougher, and it doesn't bend. And I have a toddler, so I'm always concerned, and I want to make sure that if he looks at it, you know, it'll hold up. And so if I was just to do the paper, sure, I could use a double-sided, but it's going to be so flimsy. So, okay. Oh, and the other reason why I like to use the medium weight chipboard is because of the holes that I use. If I just use this one piece of designer paper, every time once I put my wires in, every time I go to flip it, like, think about the wear and tear and the use on the paper, it's gonna rip. One of these holes eventually is gonna rip. And with the chipboard, it kind of gives it some more protection because it's much sturdier, and it's really gonna be difficult for the hole to rip even if it's continuously being open and closed. So that's another main huge reason why I like to use a medium weight chipboard. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere my paper, and I will just put I can go ahead and just start in the middle, and you don't need a lot of this glue. A little will do fine. And I'm just going to put some everywhere, and you don't have to be exact. So let's see. I just want to line this up so the holes match. And again, when I punch the holes later, it's much easier to line this up than it is now that I have to match the holes up. So I'm just going to adhere it. Oops. Just make sure it's good. I'm just going to rub it a little bit. Make sure it's on there. And again, this Tombow Mono dries super quick.
Mama, я хочу тебе что-то показать.
Okay, hold on.
Идем.
Я сейчас приду. Sorry, that was my son. So it's on there now. Okay, and I just want to show you guys something. I want to show you this edge over here. So if you can see, this paper was, I used a little bit, bits and pieces of the paper, so it wasn't exactly 6 by 6. It might have been like 5 3/4 by 6 or something like that. But that's perfectly fine, because what I'm going to do, and what I love to do on most of my mini albums, is I like to edge all the edges with either some sort of ink or paint. I love to do it with paint, actually, because it really stands out, but sometimes I will use ink. So that's one side. So let's go ahead and adhere the other. Let's see. Now, with this, I do want it to coordinate a little bit. So I'm just going to try and figure out what I want next. Actually, I think I like this side. So I think I'm going to do this.
Мама, папа мне достал эту машину о кровати моей.
Good job.
Он достал ее.
Okay. Sorry about that. That was my son. He was just telling me that he found a car that he was looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere the side again. And again, I'm just going to shake my mono to come out to the bottom a little bit. And I'm just going to go all along the sides. And I want to make sure that my main concern is the corners and the edges of the paper. I want to make sure that I have plenty of adhesive there. So again, I'm going to try to line up the holes, but normally I wouldn't have to try to line them up because I would punch the holes afterward. In this case, my excitement got the best of me. So I'm just going to make sure that it's lined up, and I'm just going to rub the paper again just to make sure that there's no bumps or air bubbles of glue or air, anywhere underneath the paper. Okay. And again, with this, same here where the edge is showing here a little bit, and I don't mind that because I'm going to edge it with some black acrylic paint, so that'll be perfectly fine. So this is the first page that we've adhered together. I'm not going to make you sit and watch every page that I do, but that is how I adhere my paper to my chipboard. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere the rest onto the chipboard, and then I will come back and we'll start to embellish. So that's pretty much all it takes. So super easy, doesn't take very much time, and I love this Tombow Mono glue. Alright, I will see you guys in a bit.